Hi there, I'm Raquel Buscaino, and I lead Deloitte's Novel and Exponential Technologies team. And I'm so excited because I'm here with the executive editor of our Tech Trends report, Kelly Raskovich, to talk about the AI infrastructure reckoning trend. So, Kelly, as we kick things off, I've got some good news for you and I've got some bad news.
Let's start with the good.
Well, the good news is that token costs have dropped 280-fold in the last 2 years.
Okay, now give me the bad news.
The bad news, unfortunately, is that enterprise costs continue to skyrocket,
Woof.
even despite this. Exactly, woof. So break this down for us. Why is this happening? Where are we in the story? And why is infrastructure so much of the focus right now?
Well, as we think about some of the other trends that we'll highlight in other videos, there's a lot that we're trying to accomplish as it relates to physical AI, agents. And so thinking about what the compute power looks like to actually pull these off is something that is really important to make sure we go in eyes wide open. And for this one specifically, it's really taking a look at it's not a one-size-fits-all anymore. And so understanding too, what does that strategic hybrid approach look like? We break it down in the trend further, but we kind of talk about it in kind of three main acts. So act one is really around, for all things cloud, that's where you'll want to use elasticity, right? That's where if you need to plus up and plus down quickly, you're going to use the cloud. On-prem are those consistent workloads, those things we know that are happening often and we know it's predictable. And then edge is really for those immediacy cases. And so really making sure that we have that visibility and that decision matrix into how do we tackle this head on and how do we make sure that we have that, not only that visibility, but that opportunity to make those decisions early and often, I think is really important.
I think it's helpful to think about it on that three-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Cloud for elasticity, variable workloads.
Yep.
You've got edge for immediacy when, hey, the latency really, really matters. And then on-prem, I think on-prem was relegated for the for the past decade, unrightfully so. It's there for consistency and the things we know we're going to need. What are some of the challenges, some of the considerations as people start to think about these hybrid approaches in a much more engaged way?
I think there's other factors to consider, right? So what does this look like from a latency perspective? How do we want to make sure that we have data sovereignty, IP protection, all of those other factors kind of at play too, to make sure that you're making the right decisions for the right time. And then I think at the end of the day too, it's making sure this is ingrained in your DNA in some way, shape, or form. We spoke to Dell's CTO and they said, we have an architecture review board. And in part, that's because how do we make sure that we have that visibility into what are the expected costs of some of these AI pilots that we're doing? Because at the end of the day, some of these could have unbound costs, just like your bad news earlier. So how do you really make sure that you make those decisions for the right time, for the right moment? It's not a one size fits all.
Amazing. And that architecture review board, I think, is really critical because, well, let's compare it to something like your annual health checkup that you get at the doctor.
Yep.
Fantastic that you're going to do it, but things are changing at a much more than an annual basis. And so do you really know the current state of where you're at right now? And I think that's the question that enterprise leaders need to ask is, do I actually know what's under the hood right now? Because things are changing even much more than on an annual basis.
I love that. It's so spot on.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. If you'd like to download the full Tech Trends report, you can scan the QR code on the screen and you can learn more about the AI infrastructure reckoning.